Okay, so welcome to episode 7 of the Midlife Crisis podcast. Today we are blessed with having a guest for the first time.
Very first blessed.
Blessed.
Oh, going all religious.
Well, we'll decide that afterwards maybe. But yeah, we've got our first guest on, so a bit of change of dynamic to it just being me and Rishi, and that is Jonathan Mills is our guest.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Blessed. No one's ever said to me,
There you
we're
go,
blessed
see.
to have you in our company. I appreciate it.
So
Let's
yes, so it's going to be a bit of a continuation from our last podcast, which is what we're trying to do is lead one podcast into the next a little bit over the next few episodes.
What did we talk about on the last one? Identity and how things develop through midlife and changing identity.
That's it. And leaving the old you behind for the new you, and the different versions of yourself as we've got to this age in life.
No, interesting. I was talking to somebody else about that actually the other day, and so it's very apt, very apt. So I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to your answers.
You don't know what I'm going to say yet.
We're hoping for some juicy tidbits here so we can get on social media.
Okay, that's fine. No
Hooks.
problem.
Give us some hooks.
No, I'll share with you what I know.
Cool. So yeah, to get started, just to give a bit of a recap on what we did last episode, me and Rishi, we sort of delved into how our concept of success has evolved and changed, and the path to get there essentially.
Yeah.
So I guess our first question is, to let the guests know, you had an early career as a football player.
Yep, momentarily.
Semi-professional football player. So explain how your vision of success from when you were playing football to now has kind of changed briefly.
Okay, so I played 2 years at Cambridge United, so technically I was professional, though I didn't play in the first team. And when I was sort of talking about identity, my whole identity when I was sort of 10 to probably 30 was all related to football. So that was all I ever wanted to be and all I ever felt that I was going to be. And I think it was probably not until I started getting into triathlon that I realised that actually, football wasn't who I was. It was just a part of where I had been. So I guess early on, my focus was on being a footballer, and then that kind of swiftly changed into wanting to be competitive in triathlon, and obviously that's where we met. So that's kind of from a sporting perspective. I think if I remember the question correctly, to do with where I wanted to be in the future, I think was just around success and just around perceived success, and whether that was football, business, or kind of being a competitive athlete, I wanted to win. That's what it was. I think more so these days, I'm more focused on adventure. I think adventure is my biggest driver. It's kind of, like we're sitting here doing a podcast, meeting people, being able to travel, being able to do different events, and just kind of have different experiences. So I think to kind of summarise that, I would say that when I was younger, I wanted to be a successful footballer, then I wanted to be a competitive athlete, then I wanted to win in business, and actually now it's more about having freedom, using my business as a tool to be able to go on those adventures. I think you and I were talking about it on the phone, weren't we?
Yeah. Do you think that's something that's obviously evolved over time, but with the underlying, like you said, the underlying thing was that you wanted to win at stuff.
Yep.
But at what point, because certainly for me, things like that, I never realised certain things until I got into my sort of late 30s, 40s, the sort of things that I wanted to actually do in life.
Yep.
Because like what we were saying the other day, like you're so institutionalised with school, college, university, and doing the things that everybody thinks is right. At what point did you realise that was kind of the underlying theme there for you?
About a week ago.
Right.
I think it's just been a slow unravelling, to be honest. I remember when I realised that my identity wasn't wrapped up in football, and that was a weird thing.
Yeah.
I mean, basically what happened was I played football for a couple of years. I was a reasonable footballer. I then quickly evolved into playing semi-pro. Like got paid, had some good bits, and then I became a non-league manager. It was the worst time of my life, but I was so wrapped up in my identity being football that I couldn't let go of it. Like I just couldn't let go of it. And I remember getting sacked. We had a reasonable season. We stayed up. We didn't have a budget, and I got sacked. And I remember getting sacked and laughing because it was just like this big relief that actually like my identity as a football person had been sort of crushed. And when I looked at it, it was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not a footballer. I'm not Jonathan the footballer. It's just one of the things that I've done. So actually, I wish, in hindsight, I wish I'd put that down a long time ago because I'd have probably moved on to other things, more quickly.
So I think it's interesting what it takes. There's so many people that are just stuck doing the same things all the time, and they're genuinely miserable. They might not realise it until they take most people need to take a little bit of a step back and a little bit of a break and a period of reflection. And I wish people would do it more.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do with this podcast a little bit, is to kind of show how, with the changes that Rishi and I have made in our lives, that we're so much happier now. And particularly, I know you're still an accountant at the moment, working my way out of it, but with the micro bakery and the sourdough baking that you're doing, having the bike box business and all the little things that you've done for you rather than because you thought you had to fit into this picture of what success looked like in terms of being an accountant. So
I was going to just ask Jonathan. So when you got sacked, was there, and you realised that you're not a footballer or Jonathan the footballer, was there a period of grieving, if you like, for that identity, or did you?
It's a really good question. What I would say is that I was in the pattern of, football was very much Friday night. You'd be in bed early, and then you'd play Saturday, and then inevitably you'd be in the bar out on a night out, and it was the big topic of conversation. So I think what was a struggle wasn't necessarily letting go of football. It was letting go of the routine. It was like Tuesday night game or training, Thursday night training, Saturday. You'd be out all day, and then you'd be either celebrating or getting drunk because you were trying to let go of the feelings of having a bad day. So it was more the routine. It was more sort of stepping away from actually Saturdays. Like, what am I going to do now?
So what age were you when?
I think I was about 33 when I stopped playing. And then I remember having a phone call from one of my friends. He said, "Look, we're doing an Ironman. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on then." Not realising what it was.
We've both been there.
and then that was the start of a new journey. And actually, I think I did quite well to not, again, just wrap myself up in that identity. I had to kind of hold myself back from being, Jonathan the triathlete.
So what happened then after football for you? Like, what did you? Because presumably you were getting paid and.
Yeah, not a lot. I always got paid as a player. Just again, it was an ego thing, really. It didn't really matter how much you got paid. The fact you were paid to play semi-pro was like a perception of success. Ridiculous when you think about it, because actually what I got paid wasn't huge anyway. So I think it was probably about 3 or 4 months after I'd stopped playing that I then had the phone call, and then I just sort of threw myself into triathlon. But I remember my wife saying to me, you're getting a bit fat. and because not fat, but skinny fat. We chatted about this. Skinny, like I'm one of those skinny fat black blokes, and I remember saying, I was like, actually, do you know what? I need to do something about this. Yeah. So then started to sort of get in, get in better shape. But like I said to you off camera, the thing for me is I really struggle unless I've got that end goal. So, I needed something to book in the diary to then be able to be like, right, I'm focused on that, on that thing.
Yeah. Okay. So from just obviously what we've talked about there is how things have changed from like within your sporting identity, if you like. So whilst you were in the football world into your sort of early 30s, outside of that, what were you doing for work?
So since I was 18, I've had a business. So when I stopped playing football, I literally fell into football coaching. And literally from then I've been self-employed, and I've worked in an organisation called Premier Education up until last year. And that has been essentially sports coaching in schools. So I had three franchises up until last year that taught kids in schools. And then I also worked for the organisation as well, just kind of helping businesses grow. That for like 25 years I've done that. And then recently, probably like the last 5-6 years, I've worked with small business owners, again helping them grow in lots of kind of different areas. But somebody asked me this earlier, and I'm possibly going to answer a question into the future, but the thing for me isn't, I'm not necessarily passionate about business. In many ways I'm not that bothered about it, but what I love is helping people. I just love helping people, and business is a vehicle because I know it. I can kind of use that as a tool to then help people, and that's what fulfills me really.
Okay. And in terms of your perception of how you sort of saw the future of business when you went in as an 18, 19-year-old taking on that franchise, how has that changed from the age you were then to now, in terms of what you get out of it personally from I suppose an immaterial perspective, and from how you would consider sort of wealth, if you like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the thing, success for me now, and again, it's taken me a long time to get there, it isn't about any external validation of, you've got this car or this house or, this amount of money in the bank. It's never been that. And if I relate that back to like being in sport, and I'm sure you'll relate to this as well, Lars, is it's not the podium or the win or whatever that is. It's about how I feel internally about the performance that I've put out. So I remember the most satisfying races I've had or football matches I've had, I haven't necessarily won, but I just know internally that actually I've delivered everything that I had there, and regardless of the fact that I came 15th or 10th, like there's a deep satisfaction there. Yeah. And what I would say with business is, I'm a facilitator, or have been a facilitator for other people to kind of step up and go on and sell their businesses for millions of pounds. And as much as I haven't received I get paid to help them, but I've not received the millions of quid that they've had, I've still been part of that, and that there's a huge satisfaction there. Like that's the most important thing for me.
Okay, cool. What was our next bit of the questioning?
I don't know. I thought we were keeping it organic.
and sorry, just to talk to that. I read one of a guest I had on the podcast recently. He put out this incredible piece of work that he basically's got a Substack account. You know what Substack is, right? So I'm only recently been exposed to it, and he put out these 7 days of like his thoughts, and how he'd written that piece of work, and the attention to detail was just like a piece of art. And when I read that, it struck a chord with me in terms of like when you're producing a piece of work, or when you're competing in a race, or you're taking part in something, or you're helping somebody, it's like just that real kind of deep care that you take in that work.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, recently, particularly we're talking off air about the podcast stuff, and, like, you know, taking 3 or 4 hours to review something and just cultivate it so that you're, you know, really satisfied with the outcome. Like that's something that I've discovered recently.
It sounds like you've got a lot of things going on, obviously, with your business, what you've done in the past, the podcast. How does it all fit together? Like, what's the interlinking thing there for you?
It's chaotic at times. Yeah. There's a lot going on. The podcast has started to take off recently. Like we were talking off camera about that. The reason to do that is because I just enjoy it. You know, it's just been one of those things that, can I swear?
Yeah.
It's been one of those things where where I've just been like, honestly, I couldn't tell you. You know, I couldn't necessarily justify why I'm spending that time, money, and energy on it, but I really enjoy it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see where it takes me. Yeah. And it's been so far, you know, there's been bits of it that I've done that have just been shit, and I'm like, that was crap. And there's been episodes that haven't been released, and there's been money spent that shouldn't have been spent, and there's been, you know, shitty conversations, but also there's been some unbelievable stuff that's come from it, and I just want to do it because it's fun. Yeah. You know, that's what it is. You're similar though, right? You're just doing stuff because it's fun.
Yeah. I think we're both on, really.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. So in terms of, like, what, like, you know, are you doing it to get to generate business? Kind of, but actually the biggest thing is just to kind of, you know,
just
do it for the fun of it.
Yeah, we'll have a conversation. Chew the fat.
Well, we both worked out that because of the way that our work life is now, is that we do have quite a bit of spare time. So we kind of figured we'd use a bit of that spare time to do something productive, you know, and something that we enjoy. But also, you know, one of the things that we've mentioned in previous podcasts is it keeps us up to date with things like technology. That spoke again off air in terms of, you know, when someone said, "Oh, if you're going to do a podcast, you need to be on Spotify and Amazon and all of those things." In my head, I was like, well, "How the hell do you do that?" Like, when actually, when you sit down and you start doing it, it's not that difficult at all. It's just, as long as you sort of source the information from the right places. You know, I spoke to you because you'd started it already. It was just simple, and I think that's one of the things is that, you know, we're, I suppose, fortunate that we've got to where we are in our businesses, that we've got the time to experiment with doing other things. And
well, that's not fortunate though, is it? So when we're talking about success, you know, and it's a really valid point. A lot of people, you know, they're chasing cars or, you know, big houses or, you know, Rolexes and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think probably as you get older, you're more focused on, you know, having the time to do what you want to do when you want to do it, as opposed to having the, you know, those things. So I would say that's intentional what you're doing, and, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence you're there, because you've set your lifestyle. You know, you've set that coordinate and you're moving towards it, aren't you? In all of your decisions.
Yeah. I was chatting to somebody, one of my clients actually, who said to me, because I was just telling him about the podcast, and it was called, you know, about the midlife crisis, and he said that in ancient times, like, you'd be running away. You know, if you want to go and get some food, or if you're hungry, you'd have to go and catch some food, and while you're catching some food, you might get chased by a bear or a lion. Those are like real crises. Yeah. And it's almost ingrained in you, as a human being, that there'll be a crisis at some point. And he kind of said that all the things that you do in your life, you're almost looking intentionally for a crisis to have to go and solve or firefight.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting, because if I look at what I do, I could be an accountant for the rest of my life. And this is, you know, for most people that are in a career, you could do that for the rest of your life, but I've chosen to do something else, and actually I'm finding it far more interesting than being an accountant because of all the things that I'm having to try and work out along the way. You know, and yes, I have got a safety net with the accounting and the other bits and pieces that we've kind of intentionally set up so that we could do things like this. But it is, you're almost throwing yourself into a crisis to have to go and solve it. I mean, is there anything that you've done in your life that...
Probably my whole life.
Sign up to an Ironman.
Well, I mean, Ironman exactly that. You're not signing. I'm same as with your cycling you're doing. You're not. That's brutal. Yeah. I mean, and I think we're probably consciously putting ourselves in those difficult positions because then you have to figure it out. I mean, Ironman. I loved. I don't know what you were like, Lars, but I loved the geekiness of, looking at 9 months down the line and looking at a race I did a race in northern Spain, and I looked at this race in 9 months and I booked it, and then you reverse engineering all of the things you need to do to get there. So that would be getting the best kit, getting the best coach, massages, doing technical work, figuring out logistics, booking races that lead up to it. Like, I used to love all of that, and then then you've got to go and do the training, and figure all that out around life. Yeah. So that's absolutely a forced pain there and a forced crisis.
I've got a mate that's interested in doing a triathlon, first triathlon. He's a runner at the minute. Okay. And it's like, he said, I think I want to do an Ironman before I'm 40. He's 33, 34 now. And I just sent him a link to, I think it's the Birmingham Triathlon. I saw it came up in my feed. I said, why don't you just... It's his birthday today. I said, I've just entered you into this for your birthday. I haven't. But, you almost need that thing to throw that in the ring. And then you're like, shit, I've got this. This is coming up in a couple of months. How the fuck am I going to do this? Yeah.
And then find a way.
You
always find a way.
100%. I mean, when I spoke to you on the phone, we had a chat for about half an hour, and you I think you're clearly not challenged by your accounting, and there's a need to kind of push yourself and do different stuff. Yeah. And I think it's that the thought of having to do the same stuff all the time, I'd struggle with that. Yeah. I think you need that challenge.
I think because you've obviously done a number of different things. Do you think, did you naturally get to the end of one thing and then do something else, or did you get bored of it and then go off and do something else? Kind of what was the trigger to go and do something else?
It's a really good. I think with football, once I'd finished playing professionally, I didn't apply myself properly. Yeah. I didn't apply myself properly. So what was going to happen there is that my ability could have took me further. Not necessarily earning thousands of pounds on a weekly basis, but I could and should have probably had a better non-league career. Yeah. I should have been playing and getting paid a lot more. But I didn't apply myself because my head had gone. I didn't know how to emotionally continue and be professional. So I slowly just slipped down the leagues and then got frustrated and wasn't fit enough. Triathlon was a new challenge. Yeah. I loved that. I loved being shit and then being better and then learning and sort of geeking out on all that stuff. But I think that the thing, probably a trait of mine, is that I then try too hard and I'm too into it, and it just becomes a bit too much. Yeah. And particularly with triathlon, I mean, Ironman is, Loz will know, but you're training 3 times a day. Yeah. So you'll, all consuming. I remember once, going out for a 5.5 hour bike ride. I've been out all day, coming in, putting my trainers on, and then going and running for an hour, and it's just like, what? Like, this isn't sustainable. It's not. Anyone that does Ironman racing I don't know how you do it for more than 3 or 4 years without just being mentally burnt out.
Well, there's a guy that I know. He took a sabbatical from work to do Kona. Yeah.
You'd have to, and it's a massive investment. Yeah. It's a huge cost implication to get there and do that. But sort of on that basis, in terms of the sort of football and the triathlon thing. So for a long period of time, my identity was that I'm a triathlete. Yep. And then when I got long COVID and I was forced to step away from it, I found that quite difficult, because it was like, well, what am I now? What do I do? And that's where I threw myself into work. And we worked together sort of in that period of time. And I think that was just because I needed something else to focus on. But like you say, these sort of things happen in people's lives that it's not necessarily a conscious choice to do that, but circumstances force you to do that. So with the football and you sort of moving from that into triathlon, was it that you'd got to a stage where you weren't enjoying the football?
Yeah, I wasn't.
Or was it that you weren't, in terms of what the leagues were looking for, was it that your standard didn't meet what they wanted? And so you were like, that's why you lost the enjoyment, because you didn't feel wanted as a player? How did that dynamic
Probably
work?
all of that, if I'm honest. I think I wasn't fit enough, and I was just kind of cruising. So I was getting and this is the thing with any sport, sporting events, you can't cheat your fitness, can you? You can't turn up to a race or a time trial or a triathlon and be like, oh, I'll wing it. Yeah. You're going to get the result that reflects how much hard work you put in. So that's what I was getting. Yeah. But in my head, I was still good enough to play, but hadn't applied myself. Yeah. So it was difficult, but I think I was still. So that's the first thing. I definitely wasn't working hard enough, but I was still wrapped up in the identity of being a footballer. And it was only when I, years down the line, that I let go of that I realised that I wasn't really bothered about football. I mean, there was probably, if I'm honest, 3 games a season that I really enjoyed. The rest of it, I was just doing it because it was habit, and I thought I should. Okay. That's what it was.
Yeah. Do you miss it at all?
Do I miss it? What, triathlon or football?
Both.
Football, some of the games you played in when there was, I played in a game where there was, we had a crowd of about 3,500 people. Probably 3 or 4 games a season that were amazing, and you'd win a game, you beat a team you shouldn't beat. You'd have some success. They were good times. No, I wouldn't say I miss it. Triathlon, I miss the point where you're in the race and you're firing and you're going well and you're overtaking people. Like I love that. But then when I think about whether I've got it in me right now to do all the work to get there, I'm like, no way.
Do you think it's the same for like professional footballers?
I would say 50% of professional footballers don't like playing football.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I look at like some of the professional cyclists and the amount of work that you have to do, and like how strict you have to be with diet and all that. And you're like a robot.
Yeah.
And I can imagine what you're saying, like.
Yeah. And it's not comfortable sitting on a saddle every day.
Yeah,
I can't imagine like the soreness of that.
Yeah.
You've got I don't know, there must be something. I think they're built differently, aren't they? Because when I did triathlon, if I did a 5-6 hour ride, like I wouldn't want to ride the next day because and they do that every day for 3 weeks in the Tour de France and things like it's just.
I think you. Sorry, cool.
But the reason I was asking those questions about in terms of you missing the football and things like that and the triathlon is that now that I've got sort of, hopefully, touch wood, past all the symptoms that I had with long COVID, I'm starting to go back to it, but I'm going back to it because I just want to enjoy it and do it as for fun rather than competitively, which is like how I used to do it. And that's been the same with the hockey and the skiing. Like I've mentioned those in previous episodes, is that I'm going back to those because I do enjoy them. But like you said with the triathlon, I think if I go back into it too hard, I'd end up burning out or not wanting to do it again because of the work that's required to get to a level. So, but I think that's only happened as I've got older, in that I'm happy to do it for fun. Whereas 10 years ago, I did it because I wanted to try and win.
Yeah.
And I think that's an age thing, which is obviously relevant to this podcast in terms of sort of midlife. How do you find that? Obviously, when you're working with business professionals, you'll work with people of different age demographics. How does their attitude change, would you say? Like, if you related it to what I've just said there in sport, in terms of being competitive or doing it because you enjoy it, do you see that those changes in a business perspective as well?
Well, first thing I wanted to say is that I'm jealous of Rishi, because we were talking earlier about. You might have to remind me of that question in a minute, but we were talking earlier, and you were just saying how much you love just training, and I do enjoy the training I do now, but I'm jealous, and I'm probably sure you are as well, Lars, that you've got that, you just love it. And the outcome is that you're naturally going to do well anyway because you love it, and that's a sustainable fuel for that. So yeah, I'm a little bit jealous about that, but you have to remind that question because it was a long question.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's like I said earlier on though. Just sorry.
That's all right.
Hold that.
No. I'll try and remember it now.
The thing that I won yesterday, the time trial that I won yesterday, the whole winning part of it was just like. I went up, shook the guy's hand, so just came home and just carried on with life really. And today I'll go and do my session because I want to do that session. And I try and put that into everything that I do. You can't, and I think that you've got to enjoy what you're doing at the end of the day, particularly in work anyway. And I think it's only then that you then. It doesn't feel like work.
I think, just before I forget this, because I will forget, but the importance of, and I think most people don't get this right, is a lot of people like say they want to do this thing and they want to be good at it. Very few people are actually willing to do exactly what it takes to get there. And certainly with Ironman and football, like at the end I wasn't willing to do that, and I think you have to be honest enough to just say, do you know what, I ain't got it in me, like with that particular thing. And clearly with the cycling you have, you want to do the work and you enjoy the process regardless of the outcome.
Have you ever worked with people from a business perspective? Sorry, I'm like,
no,
you still got that in your
I've
head?
still got it.
Yeah, good save it.
It's locked.
Have you worked with people in your business life that have got that problem where they're not willing to do the work? They want X and they're here, but they're not willing to, they think that it's almost an entitlement thing.
And the conversation, and I've worked with people, you have to be honest with the people that you work with, and there has to be a match, an alignment between what you want and what you're able to do for them and what they're willing to do. But I mean, some of the conversation I have with clients now is I can show you a blueprint of success and what you need to do, because I've been there and I've done it and I've worked with other clients. But you have to do the work. And I've had people say, well, like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can show you success because I've worked with these people here and they've all had success. But unless you do the work, unless you turn up and make those phone calls and build that spreadsheet and put those things out on social media, it's not going to work. And I know you're thinking, because you'll have worked with, particularly as a PT or a coach.
Oh yeah.
You know what success is, and you know what it's not. They've got to do the work. So that's entirely frustrating at times, or has been, when I've got instances where I've given two people exactly the same framework. Intricacies are different, and one has gone off and relocated abroad and sold their business, and the other one is ringing you up to say, actually this isn't working. And it's like, okay, but like, well, why is it not working for you, but yet it's working for you?
Just on that point, actually, I'll still remember my question, but relating to that point, was one of the guys that I've been training for a long time ran the Manchester Marathon yesterday, and his goal since 2018 was to go sub 4 hours.
3:57.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I've always known that he's capable of that, but he'd fully admit that probably for the last 9-10 years that I've been training him, he never sticks to the plan because he loves doing events, like not for the result but just to be involved. So I would have, for example, a plan of A race, B race, C race, etc. And I've put those strategically in the right places so that, you know, we can come into the right fitness for the marathon that you're trying to get sub 4 at. And then 3 weeks out from that final race, he'll go and do a Tough Mudder in London the day before the marathon. And so he'll do the Tough Mudder, drive up to Manchester in the morning and do the marathon and not get the result. But he'd still be happy because like he's just enjoyed doing but he's always, like, I know that he's always wanted to hit that. And so this year, he's been much stricter with his plan. He's followed the plan, and he's got the result.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of proof in the pudding, if you like.
Yeah, and that's where you need to just be clear on what is success for you. You know, what is success? Because again, like with certain clients, I mean, probably you Loz, as a case and example, your focus hasn't been on, you know, scaling a 7 or 8 figure business. Your focus is your time and being able to choose what you do, and and I think when you're clear on what that is, then you can work with individuals, whether it's coaching or as an accountancy firm, and help people achieve what their perception of success is.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is people aren't always honest with themselves, which is probably, you know, using me as an example. When we started working together, in my head, I think I was telling you that I wanted to have a clinic in this place, and we started to do that. But actually, I didn't enjoy that because I wasn't prepared to put the work in to do that, because that massively sacrificed my time. And so in the end, it just scaled back down to just being me. But I don't think I was honest with myself in terms of, or maybe it was just my perception of what I thought I needed to do to get to that point was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's just taken time to work out. But I think that's, maybe people are just in too much of a rush. And again, does that in business, you must find that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything takes time typically. And I think because of social media and how things are perceived, you quite often miss all of the hard work. In fact, most of the time, people don't see the hard work that is going on in the background, and it just takes time. So we were talking about the podcast, and I was explaining off camera about a friend of mine who, you know, the podcast is absolutely flying. But I remember going on his show, 2.5 years ago, when, they were sort of scrambling for guests, and I spoke to him the other day, and now they're inundated with people contacting them to be, to come on their show.
Is that a running theme, that when people are scrambling for guests, you're the guest?
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, exactly that.
That's us right now.
Exactly that. But what he said...
2 years time machine.
What he said, I'm the turning point. What he said was that, you said you've got to earn your stripes, and it's exciting, the journey, and it's exciting, watching them grow and evolve and seeing a couple of their videos go viral and stuff. But also, I'd say there's quite often, if I explain this properly, there's a lag between the effort and the work you do, and then that translating into what the outcome is. It's like you might be doing the work and you might have done everything you need to do, but it will just might take an extra 3, 6, 7, 8, 2 years to actually see that come through, and you just have to kind of keep going and keep doing whatever it is that you're doing to make that happen. So again, same in triathlon, isn't it?
Yeah.
And any type of training, you don't smash yourself for 6 months and then after 6 months, one day you're suddenly fit. It's still going to take time for that fitness to kick in.
I think the culture in this country, not just this country, but just in general in this day and age, everyone's moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Nobody's got time to think about what it is that they actually want to do, which is why people get stuck in jobs that they hate for such a long time. And they get stuck. You get stuck in like trading up your lifestyle. You get a pay rise, and it gets harder and harder then to do the thing that you want to do. But because it doesn't happen overnight.
No,
you have to keep chipping away at it.
Yep.
Or you have to make those brave decisions to step away from your job and throw yourself into these things. But at what point do you do it? Personally, I think you kind of just have to cut the cord.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd say not everybody should do it.
Yeah.
Because some people, and again, this is the whole perception as to what you should be doing.
Yeah.
I would have said to everybody up until probably 10 years ago, you should be your own boss and you should you should work for yourself. That isn't true, because not everybody can handle that.
But if you don't try it, how do you know?
Because you might know. You might be somebody that just wants to go and work 9 till 5 and to have a job that you don't need to think, and you get home and you're quite happy to dial out and spend time with your kids. Yeah. I think everybody is very different.
But if you've got an itch, like
you should scratch it.
Yeah.
You should try.
Yeah.
You need to be prepared that it's probably not going to be a straight line of success. Yeah. I mean, in my sort of second business that we set up, it took me 3 years to take any money out.
Yeah.
But again, the people don't see that, and then when you look sort of back after sort of being in that business for 20 years, all of a sudden that's a decent sized business with staff and paying you a decent chunk of money.
Yeah.
But you forget all of the work that you've done early days to get there.
Yeah. Relevant to Rishi's point, in terms of people having that itch to scratch, with people's working environment changing quite a lot since COVID, have you found that there's more people who have the side hustle but want the sort of knowledge that you've got to try and build it?
I mean, a lot of people have got side hustles now, and I don't think that's a bad thing. What was the second bit?
So do you think people are, like, with that side hustle and the time that they've got to do it, with the sort of experience that you've got, are you working with people that are trying to turn their side hustle into a business, or has it usually already transferred that they've got the business and then they're looking to expand it? Yeah,
most of the businesses I work with are already established. I can't. I mean, sometimes people will come to me and they'll ask me, I've got this idea, and I'll sort of talk to them about that. Might give them some advice and a bit of guidance. Typically the work I do is with established businesses that maybe have plateaued. They probably need some accountability. A lot of what the work we do is accountability. I mean, same with what you do, Lars. A lot of it is the power of having somebody check in on you and watch what you do, and put you a plan. But most people need that. And you're a case and example as well.
Okay. So I have remembered the question. So my question was, with regards to how your sort of career changed in a sporting environment, from Jonathan the football player to Jonathan the triathlete to Jonathan the high rockster now. In terms of people's careers and the different stage, like demographics of age that you would work with, is someone in their 20s very different to work with compared to someone in their 40s? Yeah,
I mean, probably when you're in your 20s, you've got more flexibility to have a go at things, because you probably haven't got a big mortgage, you probably haven't got kids. So I think it's easier to do that. I think there's probably in most people less fear as they get older. There's more of a kind of a young, I wouldn't say naivety is not the right word, but there's more of a I'll give it a go type attitude. and typically, not always, but younger people tend to be more open to listening and taking on guidance, whereas, and again, not always, but older people, like, they tend to have to be like really struggling and like it being a shit show for them to make any changes. That's typically what I see.
And that is what we sort of think is relevant to the podcast, is that people are like that generally with their lives, is they get stuck in that, you know, they've been in the job and they've got to a certain level in their career, and even though they don't like it and the circumstances that they find themselves in don't fit with the life that they sort of foresaw for themselves, they won't make those changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's and they have to come to that realization themselves. They have to be in enough shit or enough, you know, pain to make a change. And you can talk to people till they're blue in the face, but until they're at that point, they're never going to make a change. They're just not going to do it.
How should we, as a podcast, convince people?
What, to make a change?
Well,
I think the only way you can, doing what you're doing, you know, talking about stuff and just sharing it. I think if you, again, I was the world's worst for giving unsolicited advice. But what I find is that when you just kind of being who you are and, you know, being as authentic as you can be, you know, quite often people are watching and they're just taking note, and, you know, they'll just be a little bit intrigued, and then they might ask you a question, and then all of a sudden they're signing up to something that maybe you've shown them on social media, whatever that is. I think that's the best way, is just leading by example.
Okay. And for you, where you are now, looking to the future, what is success for you in the future now?
Well, what I would say is, I'd say something else to that, and that is that I've literally just started again. So whilst I've been in business since I was 18, I'm 44. Am I 44? What, how old am I?
45.
I'm 45. Yeah. I like, we've got a bird. So I've just started again. So I sold my business April last year, not for a life-changing amount of money, but enough that I could transition into a new thing, which has been setting up Alchemy Hub. So I am, you know, that's where I am, and I'm doing everything that we're kind of talking about. You know, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning worrying about things, and, you know, trying to build the business whilst working with other businesses and going through all those growing pains. I'm doing all of that. Yeah. So I kind of absolutely relate to what you're talking about.
This is kind of your new crisis.
Yes.
You're like,
Yeah. But
you've got the safety net of, you know, to a certain extent.
I think the safety net is your own ability, isn't it? You know, it's the skills that you've got. You know, that's the biggest safety net. Just kind of backing myself.
Yeah. Cool.
There was something else you asked me there, but I sort of jumped on that question. I can't remember what it was now.
No, it was about success into the future. Yeah. I mean, you obviously started again, and
I would say success for me is about adventure. Yeah. It's about experiencing things, and it's and of course money helps with that. And having, you know, being your own boss helps with that, because, you know, if I can choose what I do, that's the biggest driver for me. Yeah. And I think money comes off the back of that. Yeah. That's my primary thing.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we've sort of established through the conversations that we've had is actually that your perception of success is going to change through life anyway, because, you know, if you didn't have kids, you know what you look. If you had kids and you didn't have kids, your perception of success changes straight away. And I think that's, you know, what you've just touched on there is really important. Is that success is going to be what it will be based on where you're at in your life at the moment. Because, you know, success for me when I was 18, 19 was that I wanted to ski for Great Britain. That didn't happen, but that doesn't mean that my world is now a shit show, because from then onwards, my vision of what success is has changed. And so I think that's the key thing, is that wherever you're at in life and what you're working towards is your perception of success. but you have to be prepared to accept that when you get there or you don't get there, depending on what happens with the circumstances, there'll always be something else that you can look at as a way to progress.
Yeah, and also what I'd say is that, you know, maybe you were never meant to be a professional skier.
Well, I was born in Britain, so that's...
I know. Well, anything will but you know, maybe that wasn't your quest anyway, and maybe as much as I always thought I was going to be a footballer, actually, you know, I can bring bigger impact on the world with you know, helping build a huge education business that teaches tens of thousands of kids on a weekly basis. What's more important, that I played at Wembley or whether, you know, I helped build something that's probably changed kids' lives. When you think about it, really, football, you know, it comes and goes. No one really cares, do they? Really.
Do you think people focus too much on money?
Yes. Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. I was just having a conversation with my brother about this morning, and my dad was a bit of a workaholic. I mean, he loved it. He absolutely loved working. And he died suddenly when he was 68 and didn't enjoy any of the wealth that he'd created.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
That was quite a while ago now. But the question I had to my brother was, like, at what point would he have had enough? I don't think he would have stopped. But really, he could have kicked back and, you know, enjoyed his life. I've got a friend who's our age, exactly the same. But I mean, he's like the most successful person I know, and he's got a massive house, Porsche in the garage. He could quite easily retire right now. But I've said to him, at what point is enough?
I think I can answer that for you.
Go on in.
In all my wisdom, but I think you answered it yourself when you said he loved working. Is that he did it because he loved working, so that was his purpose, was that he wanted to keep working. So he was doing what he loved anyway, without the money. That's how I think.
I don't think he would have ever retired, but there are other people that I know, like this other lad. He's got more money than he knows what to do with.
I mean, you as an accountant will know as well. Most people are looking at the wrong metrics. You know, they're thinking about turnover and size of businesses, when actually, I think more and more so, you know, you can build really good wealth from a very efficient business running it yourself. But you've got to be smart about it. You know, you've got to be really intentional about what that, you know, what your life looks like and what your business looks like. I mean, you know, I know businesses, I won't speak specific to them, but they you know, where they've had 50 staff, you know, turning over, you know, a couple of million quid, and then they're making, you know, they're making peanuts, and it's like, why? You know, why would you?
If you scaled it back, made it more efficient.
100%. Yeah. So I think that's really important. Just touching, I'll tell you something funny. You'll probably chuckle at this, Lars, but the whole success thing with so High Rocks. You know, you and I have raced triathlon and endurance sports for a long time, and you, as part of that, you're quite scrawny, aren't you? Whereas with High Rocks, you know, you get in reasonable shape. And my goal for the last High Rocks was to race with my top off. That was my goal. It wasn't anything about time. That's
why I look hench.
It was about that. And but again, what was you will chuckle at this, but what was funny was, as I got closer to it, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't need to. And also from a
vanity.
What's the word? Like just a functional perspective. Racing with your top off isn't smart anyway, because you sweat, and if you're sweating and you've got nothing to, you know, to wipe your face on or hands on, it's not helpful anyway. So as much as I could have done that because I was happy with the aesthetics of how I looked. It's like, this is stupid. But the
didn't fit the mould, Millsy.
But the goal itself was a different goal and a good goal, and you know, I was happy anyway.
Yeah. Cool. Right. I think we should wrap it up on that as the last comment. But yeah, obviously, thanks very much for coming on. You know, first guest ticked off the
That's
list.
good. Enjoyed it.
In 2 years' time, we'll have 50 million
50 million
followers.
views.
Who
We can
knows?
relate back to this episode where we scrambled for a guest and Millsy came in.
but in all seriousness, and it is a cliche, but the journey is the fun bit, isn't it? You'll get when you get your first 1,000 views or downloads or whatever that is, like that, you got to celebrate that stuff. Because there'll always be somebody else that's got 50 million views.
Well, Buzzsprout gives us a little thing, the fact that we've done 5 episodes is more than most podcasters ever do, because they give up before.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you don't know who's listening. There'll be one person that's listening maybe that listens to this and it inspires them, and it might just take them on a trajectory.
25% of our audience is in America.
There you are.
Happy days.
Great.
Right.
Cool.
Thanks very much for coming on,
Appreciate
mate.
it.
Yeah.
Good.
Good
Enjoy
stuff.
it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been good.
All right. Cheers.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Done.
Good.